Building blocks, 2025 in Tel Aviv, the future of tech.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Ben Samocha. I'm the founder and CEO of Crypto Jungle, the largest media platform in Israel, and of BDCC, Blockchain and Digital Currency College, where we teach about the future of blockchain and Bitcoin. With us today, we have Roy Scheinfeld, CEO of Breeze, Lightning as a Service platform, and one of the Bitcoin and Lightning Network OGs in the international space. We also have Tom Brand, the head of product at Starkware, who's building scaling solutions, not just for other blockchains, but for Bitcoin with Starks. And we have Adi Shimoni. Adi is the Bitcoin developer, wallet expert, and consultant in the cryptocurrency space. So thank you all for sharing the stage with me. I'll also mention that Nadav Ivgi was supposed to be here with us. Nadav was feeling ill today, so maybe another time we'll get to enjoy his insights, and you're more than welcome to visit the Bitcoin Embassy in Achuzat Beit Echad to learn from him on a daily basis, almost there. So guys, I want to start with Bitcoin as an ideology, right? So we all know, at least most of us know, there's kind of a separation we make between Bitcoin and crypto, Bitcoin and the rest of the ecosystem. And the first question I want to begin with is, what does building on Bitcoin mean for you, to you? How do you see as building on it as opposed to other platforms? Roy, let's start.
Well, that's a large scope question. I'll try kind of to take a step back and say what I think is building on Bitcoin, building with Bitcoin means for me. So Bitcoin is mostly used for transactions. One of the use cases is processing Bitcoin payments. So that's building with Bitcoin. So let's differentiate between building with Bitcoin to building on Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is a currency, but Bitcoin is also a platform. It's a technology. So building with Bitcoin, meaning integrating Bitcoin transactions to your applications and services, is, for me, I'm focused on the Lightning Network. It's very hard to integrate Bitcoin if you want to use it as a mean of payment, as a medium of exchange. So you need something like the Lightning Network in order to facilitate fast, cheap, scalable Bitcoin transaction. And the tools that we're building at Breeze help developers integrate Lightning payments into their own applications and services. But there are other aspects of building on Bitcoin. So you can use Bitcoin as a currency. It's very easy today. Like, the technology is greatly improved in the past few years. It used to be a high barrier to integrate Lightning payments. Now we have some partners that are integrating Bitcoin in a matter of hours, especially with AI tools. And if you're not a very strong developer, it's a matter of days. So it's very easy. If you have an application, you want to use Bitcoin as a currency, you want a global currency, use Bitcoin, integrate Bitcoin, and start transacting globally with Bitcoin. There's also an aspect of building on Bitcoin, and there are very interesting emerging technologies in that regard. I'll just mention a few. One of them is DLCs, a district log contract, where you can suddenly have smart contracts on Bitcoin. So you can build prediction markets on Bitcoin, you can build lending products on Bitcoin, you can build insurance products on Bitcoin.
And you're talking about on-chain, not second layers.
Well, I'm talking about both. And I think that's another thing that we need to realize. There's kind of a convergence right now between layer 1 and layer 2, because DLC in itself is a layer 2. The contract itself is not stored on the chain, it's stored off-chain. Just the transactions that are being signed as a result of the DLC are broadcasted to the chain. So you can build a lot of products on the Bitcoin technology using DLC. I think also a technology that is worth mentioning is Nostr. While it's not Bitcoin native, it's very Bitcoin adjacent. So Nostr is a platform, it's decentralized information system where you can build any application. They aim kind of to replicate the web in a decentralized manner, and a lot of Bitcoiners are building applications on top of Nostr, and inherently it includes the form of Bitcoin as a currency. I'll stop talking now.
Thank you. Tom, for you, especially because of Starkware's recent move. We'd love to hear about that.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so when I started working in the blockchain ecosystem almost 7 years ago, what we wanted to do is to use Stark proofs or proofs in general to allow scaling blockchains. And back then, it was, I mean, the ideal was to scale Bitcoin, but the technology or the state of research at that time didn't allow it, and we went and built the technology and the protocols on different layers, specifically on Ethereum. And what's exciting for the past, I mean, we are at it, let's say, for a year now, but I think we'll talk about it in a few minutes, but a few changes that have been to the protocol and also to the state of the research on scaling Bitcoin basically allowed us to now take what we've built in the past 6 years on other blockchain technologies and to start applying it also to Bitcoin. So that's what it means for me now.
Amazing. Adi.
Well, this is a good question, and let's say it's the same on building on any other blockchain, only better. Why I'm saying that? Not to underestimate. By the way, someone that is not familiar with my work, I've been working on other chains as well. Most of the time, actually.
No way.
Yeah. I had to because I had to provide. So, but the thing is, we cannot expect the same building rate and innovation, and in the same in one hand, and in the other hand, to expect Bitcoin to be the hardest money on earth. Okay, this is impossible. So things are getting a bit slower than the other networks, as we can see, but we have a lot of new interesting proposals. Some of them, it's hard to insert. Let's say, for example, CTV proposal, which is a proposal that we want to insert to implement covenants. Covenants, it's a way to restrict the funds that you are sending. For example, let's say you want to build something that can send only to a specific address. Okay, so you can use covenants for that. And there are some proposals that are almost waiting for almost 5 years. Okay, so it's taking the time. There's a lot of sometimes there is a controversy around it. Some Twitter toxic fighting and stuff like that. But we can see a lot of new stuff that are coming into Bitcoin. Roy mentioned few, and I would like to say also Taproot assets. It's a great thing that it's relatively, it's a new use. We recently saw a first stablecoin on Lightning, which is a great thing. And you can issue your tokens, stuff like that. We don't want everybody to issue some scam tokens, but when we're talking about stable, it's very useful. So I think that there's a lot of things that people are building now to Bitcoin and on Bitcoin, but the rate is a bit, it's slower than other things, and it's understandable.
So you're definitely leading the stage to the second question, which is, how do you balance Bitcoin's innovation with the conservative approach we have in Bitcoin community to change? Because eventually in other blockchains, as you mentioned, they break everything and they go fast, they innovate fast, they jump from one innovation to the other, while in Bitcoin, at least the general consensus is that Bitcoin's development ethos prioritize security, prioritize decentralization and stability over moving fast and breaking things. So I want to hear specifically, how does it impact your work? Like, how does it affect you on a day-to-day? For example, like Tom mentioned, and he can expand that it was hard for Starkware to make that move until now because of this conservative approach. What can you expand on that? Where you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So I think what's important to understand is that Bitcoin isn't monolithic. Bitcoin has different layers. And true, the base layer, the main chain, is very hard to change by definition. Changes are very slow. By the way, they're happening all the time, but there's no like new opcodes or large changes. There are large changes, but they're not exposed in the Bitcoin interface, which is mainly the Bitcoin script. So when you talk about change, you mainly think about like what else I can do with a Bitcoin script, whilst Bitcoin and the Bitcoin software constantly evolves. There were large changes that were implemented in regards to mempool, for example. So for me, I try to focus on layer 2 because I want to move faster. That's why we are focusing on the Lightning Network. There's not only Lightning Network, there are multiple layers 2s that are Bitcoin native, like Arc and Spark that is gonna be released soon. Very exciting new layer 2s, which are Bitcoin native. When I say Bitcoin native, I mean you're using BTC as a token within the layer 2, but there are other layer 2s where you can just take the Bitcoin, peg it to another blockchain and do whatever you want. So I think if you want to move fast, break stuff, or try and experiment with new scripts, you have a variety of dozens of Bitcoin compatible layer 2 that you can use, and you can use Lightning, and you can use Spark, and you'll be able to use other solutions soon. I don't see a compelling reason to change the base layer so fast.
Yeah, maybe I will start by saying that I think that the fact that this is the case is, among other things, one of the great value propositions of Bitcoin, right? So the fact that it is the holy grail to try and scale Bitcoin, mostly for, not only, but also for this reason, right? So I don't think there is, I mean, I value it, and I don't think this should change. And so now the question is, what do you do when this is the case, right? So as I've said, with once Taproot basically was introduced and the research was progressed, now it is suddenly possible to start thinking about how you can build the constructions of rollups, which were started and invented on Ethereum, to blockchain. And I think even I think we'll discuss it in a few minutes on Opcat. But even if we disregard it, with the current situation that you have today, there are many things that you can already do to settle rollups on Bitcoin. And in the areas of BitVM, stuff like that. So this is like very, like the future of, or the latest research on scaling, but building towards it is the way we approach it, because this is currently what's available, right? I mean, there are many. I do think that there are changes that can happen to the base layer that will, at least from the scaling and expressibility perspective, will have a great impact or good impact. Of course, there are also like downsides, and we can, this is the discussion. But even before we have those, we can do now like many good stuff.
Yeah, just in the context of BitVM, which is a new construct relatively, like BitVM, I don't know, it's a year or 2 years old.
Yeah, there's also no production system right now.
There's no production. Strata gonna be released soon, hopefully. But you have ways to scale Bitcoin using ZK rollups outside of the Bitcoin chain. So
yes, I would just say that BitVM
and BitVM too.
Yeah, I think Strata is based on BitVM too. It has trade-offs, right? It is, as we've said, it's a new and complicated system. It is not completely trustless. So there are constructions that are much cleaner, and you can have better trust assumptions. But again, they require changes which might have other side effects. So at least for me, this tension between innovation and making sure that what we have is safe means that right now we build with what you have.
Okay, I want to just raise one thing. There's a lot of work that has been done on Bitcoin. Bitcoin is maintaining all the time. It just the things are how to implement our soft forks. Okay, when you change something in the consensus layer, when you change and when you add a new script command, then you're changing the consensus layer. This is a soft fork. Well, soft fork is it's an activation process that activates new features in Bitcoin, but it has some drawbacks. It has some risk. It has some risk. So it's not something that we want to do all the time. Saying that, there's a lot of proposals that are making the development much more easier. For example, we can create covenants also today, okay? And we create vaults already. In some, there are some very sophisticated, complex proposals for example, from Brian Bishop, for example, that created Vault back then. And using the new commands will be much easier. Okay, the scripts will be much clearer, much shorter, and even much safer. But again, you have to think about that it's changing the consensus rules. And sometimes, for example, we will get to cat, but cat it's a dangerous from some reasons, okay? And for example, CTV, it's much less risky. So we need to, there's a lot of smart people that are checking and reviewing every proposal. It's taking a lot of time. And, like I said before, like CTV of Rubin, it's waiting like 5 years for, it's the first one that will get into Bitcoin.
It's a soft fork?
Yeah, it's a soft fork. It's a new command. Actually, it's worth mentioning in the technical side what this command actually do, okay? Actually, the CTV is just letting you, from the script, examine the transaction that want to spend, okay? The current transaction, because the script today cannot check things that are not inside the stack, and you cannot check the spending transaction. When I want to send something now, so the script until today can check some of the information that are in the transaction, and now the CTV say, okay, now you can do it. You can check the commit data. It's getting more technical, but so it's actually a very good command. Let's hope that we'll see it soon.
Definitely. But before we talk about future innovations, I want to go back to some innovations that we had thanks to Taproot. So Taproot was a soft fork. It was implemented, I believe, the end of 2021. And since then, many things happened. We had Ordinals start and inscription, so sort of creating NFTs on Bitcoin, which will created this mania over the halving block, where you had $2.3 million in fees just to grab the first Satoshi inscription of the block. We had then BRC20 tokens created on Bitcoin. So Taproot changed Bitcoin in a way. It enabled new things. And what I want to get an overview from you, Adi, is what are the changes? How has the development changed since then? What can developers, when it comes to Taproot, expect more?
Well, I think that, there's some, I remember Udi was making laugh out of it because, Taproot was a huge promise, and it's like things are going slower sometimes in Bitcoin, okay? But we can see in Taproot, we can see the Ordinals. Some people see it's an attack on Bitcoin. Maybe some of them are sitting here on the panel,
But it's not really Taproot, it's more Segwit.
Yeah, but you know, they use Taproot. Maybe they can do it in another way. You know.
We need to differentiate between innovations, quote unquote, that use Bitcoin as a persistency layer, as a data persistency layer, because you can put more data on the chain, and innovations that are really using Taproot to do more sophisticated stuff. So maybe you can.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like you cannot compare, for example, what I agree with Ray. You cannot compare Taproot assets and the complexity and the things that it can bring.
The
to
actual
Ordinals.
use of the signature, the Taproot Schnorr signatures in order to create more elaborate constructs.
Yeah, and, you know, it's not like something like Ordinals, but Ordinals, I think it was, you know, it's also a protocol. Yeah, maybe it's not the innovation that everybody wants, but it's
and
a
it
protocol.
did bring a lot of traffic and a lot of volume and a lot of interest and a lot
Back
of minor fees. And sure, it did spark controversy, but eventually in terms of Taproot adoption of wallet addresses and Taproot usage, it skyrocketed, and it also helped Lightning because Bitcoin became more expensive, we saw more, at least in correlation. We cannot say it's causation, but we saw more correlation to Lightning growing.
I'm for the fee rising. Like whatever causes the fee to rise, like I'm all for it. So if it's this marketing campaign or another marketing campaign, I'm all for it. You can call it Ordinals, BRC20, LRC20, whatever. I don't care. If you use Bitcoin, it's good for Bitcoin. I agree with that. But what I want to kind of to differentiate, I want to differentiate kind of the real innovation that Taproot brings. Taproot assets can't be, like tokens on Lightning cannot be implemented without Taproot. The ability to send stable coins or other tokens on the Lightning Network, it's impossible to do without Taproot. You can't do DLCs without Taproot, and that's going to open a new design space for Bitcoin. So there's real stuff that are much more sophisticated than just use the extra space that the blockchain gives you to store additional metadata in a transaction.
Yeah, we could have done that before, right? You know, we have off-pretend for many years. But I think it's just the tip of the ice. We'll see a lot more using Taproot. And I want to say something more, but I forgot. It's like,
if you can expand, Tom, on what it means for Starkware, right? So for Taproot enabled new things.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, most of the constructions that we see which are not Lightning today, basically, they are very new because of that, right? So, for example, BitVM uses it, and this is, I agree with you, it's an example for a more sophisticated construction that doesn't only use the extra space that we have, right? So first of all, this, again, for us, or for me personally, this was like a very, we were able to come back home in a sense and to start thinking on how we can create those constructions also on Bitcoin. So that's on the innovation side. I think that runes and ordinals, for me, maybe as a product person, I mean, they show that there is a need or that users also from the Bitcoin community want the kind of things that you maybe previously would have thought that are relevant for other blockchains, right? So for me, it says, okay, I see a need here also for stuff that are not only, I don't know, simple Bitcoin transfers. Or
just to make this an interesting panel and to
go.
create some tension here, it actually proved the otherwise. Like, yes, runes and ordinals spiked for, I don't know, a month, 2 months. Yeah. Now no one uses it.
Yeah, well, the last block, the last interesting block, like block 88888888, was only $12K fees, compared to how many? Like
2.3 million.
Like it was hyped. Yes,
yeah,
like
it was
use Bitcoin as the most secured, whatever marketing.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, it was the hype is gone for now.
I think that, yeah, when there was hype, people were willing to suffer the costs and the UX. And I agree. This is so. I don't think it shows that people are so desperate for it that they're actually willing to use it, even with with the cost and the UX, but I think that having assets that are rooted on Bitcoin, as you've said, as a sequencing layer, is I think it has value, and this shows.
You need to explain that to me. Has value, meaning people want to buy and sell them? Yes, for a short time. But has value in what regard? Like, what does it mean? It has value.
I think that assets that are rooted on Bitcoin has more value than assets that are rooted on other chains. And I also think that once you will allow those assets to be traded and used in a UX and cost that are much lower than what you have today, I might be wrong, but you will see the return of the runes.
And what's the value proposition for you? Like the security of the Bitcoin chain?
Yes. You don't see a value in it.
I think it's weak. It's not that I don't see it. I see it as a marketing pump, but I don't see it as a real value proposition.
Why?
Because Ethereum is secured enough. Solana is secured enough for meme coins.
No, for meme coins I agree, but
Yeah.
I think that
So for what DeFi, Ethereum is secure enough. No, it's not.
It's secure enough. I think Bitcoin is if we talked about the base layer, slow pace, I think you cannot compare between the two, and I think it has a lot of value. And I think that also there will be a tendency to there is a gravity to the magnitude of Bitcoin, right? And so I think that it makes sense that if you allow people to do what you can do on Ethereum, but it being rooted on Bitcoin, then people will choose that.
Just give me the use case.
I think eventually we know what it means in terms of the use case, and I think that in general we need to make the differentiation that we kind of started with, which is the purpose of why we have Bitcoin as opposed to why, for example, Ethereum was created. Because eventually Bitcoin was created to become better money, a better monetary system, while Ethereum, to begin with, wanted to create a wider ecosystem with more applications, with more distribution of abilities and applications.
Personally, I'm asking you, Ben, is there something that is happening now on Ethereum that you're just waiting for it to happen on Bitcoin for you to get into?
I think that it's legitimate to ask whether you want to have Bitcoin-backed loans on-chain on Bitcoin.
But you can do that without any new opcode. Just go to Lava, which uses DLC, and you have Bitcoin-backed loans.
But you have DLC right now, thanks to Taproot.
Yes. So I'm asking specifically. I think that's kind of the main problem around the new opcode proposals. There is an idea of use cases, but no one is able to come with a compelling use case and to gather the entire community behind it. Unlike Segwit and Taproot, that Lightning was kind of the main reason for that helped it cross kind of the consensus bar. In the new opcode proposals, like take vaults, for example, Adi mentioned Vault. There's a lot of controversy around vaults, around the usage and the need of vaults on Bitcoin. And I think kind of that's the main problem. It's not that I'm against, by the way, from a technical standpoint, OpCat is beautiful. But from a use case standpoint, from the unknown standpoint of what OpCat can bring to Bitcoin, no one wants to take that risk. No one in the Maxi community wants to take the risk because we don't understand the implications, and we don't see a use case that is compelling enough for us to kind of push it forward.
So let's jump into OpCat, right? So eventually we have many participants who probably know nothing about it, and that is eventually one of the biggest discussions currently in the Bitcoin development ecosystem. So it is probably the biggest when we talk about it. Adi, if you can please give us an explanation, what is OpCat, what does it enable, and then we can open the discussion as what's the advantages, what the disadvantages, etc.
Okay, so OpCat is just a command, a script command that it's concatenate two strings together. That's it. But some things might benefit from it. Well, Opcat alone.
If I can take you back a bit to put it a bit more in layman terms, like what does OpCat enable? Like you did before with covenants, you explained, you gave us an explanation, an example. Sorry.
I'm getting there. Well, the thing is that most people will say, okay, what do I get from just concatenating thing on the stack? They just think about it like it's a program that you can. I don't want to start to explain what is the strip stack. Okay, but think about it that in your program you can put some variables, but then you can concatenate them all together to one variable. Okay, and with this variable you can verify commitments against this data. Okay, for example, let's talk about Starkware and then you will elaborate on it. Why Starkware need OPCat? Okay, because they want to build first, like covenants, we talked about it, covenants, okay? And they need also the recursive covenants, which means that each covenant also implies on your next destination also will be a covenant, and the next will be, so you forever will use like covenants, okay? So let's say you need to send to a specific address type, forever you will need to use this type. So we don't know, okay, 1 second. We don't know, maybe I'm missing some, some minor details, but it's the idea that we're a bit afraid of recursive covenants because you can, in the end, it can be that you will not be able to spend the funds, okay? And the other thing it's to implement the verifier, the stacks verifier, the proofs they need the proof, and they need to concatenate it in a way that they will be able to take all the data concatenated and just check the validity, that someone signed this data and this is the real data. Maybe you want to elaborate more about, the minor details if I forgot something. But, this is why Starknet, for example, really wants OPCat. They have like,
So if I want to try and dumb it down, so basically what it means is that currently we have, in the way that Bitcoin works, a lot of complex operations, many different variables, and if we do enable OPCat, whatever we want to call it, so basically it takes a lot of complex solutions and makes it more concise and allows you to more easily verify through the cryptography, through the math, what happens behind the scenes.
Yeah, think about it, that you need in your program, you need to just add few components and concatenate them together, okay? That's it. That's actually what OPCat is doing. And actually, OPCat can do a lot by himself. He needs some, some other stuff. It's like if you just implement just OPCat, it won't give you a lot of abilities. You need to use it with other proposals too.
Okay, Tom, you want to add?
Yeah, just thank you for the explanation. I want to mention that some construction are not. It's not that they are possible today, but they would just be better. But they are just not possible today, right? Or they might be theoretically possible. Like the collider script, for example, that we publish, but it's almost unfeasible or not relevant for a system if you wanted to serve, 1 billion people.
And won't be native. It's maybe possible with BitVM kind of constructions, but not natively.
I didn't mention even BitVM. BitVM, I agree, but I'm saying even but just to, so OPCat allows us to construct the verifier in an efficient way. And the verifier allows you basically to verify a proof of arbitrary computation, and also to create constructions that are like the recursive covenants allow you to create constructions that are like smart contracts in a way, right? They have logic, they can have also storage, and you can enforce it between the UTXO.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll try to simplify everything.
Please do.
Because we're talking about OPCat, it's a very technical topic, but I think going back to the beginning of our discussion, the tension is between Bitcoin as a blockchain to Bitcoin as a currency. And basically, Bitcoiners want only Bitcoin as a currency. We can have a discussion about that, whether it's right or wrong, or maybe Maxis and myself included are too narrow-minded. But we don't think, and OPCAT eventually will allow tokens, and even worse than tokens, it will allow AMM, which means bring all the crypto casino to Bitcoin. We don't want that. Like, we want the crypto casino to stay at Ethereum and leave our Bitcoin to payments, because we think the use case of Bitcoin as a payment method, that's the value proposition of Bitcoin. It's not the blockchain, it's not the data persistency
this
layer.
is the killing app.
Sorry?
The killing app.
Yeah, that's the key. We want to succeed with Bitcoin as a currency, and we don't want to compete other use cases, casino use cases, to compete with Bitcoin as a currency. We want Bitcoin transactions, we want Bitcoin payments, and that's the focus. And the fear is that OPCAT that will allow constructions like AMMs will bring all the casino to Bitcoin, and then we'll have a constant chasing of the new hype to settle.
Yes, I can relate to that. I just want to say that in the same way that runes were hyped, but they're actually not really relevant to use on-chain because of the costs and the throughput that you can actually do. So I think that also, like on-chain constructions of casino or DeFi, whatever you want to call it, I mean, they will be nice. They can be hyped, but I don't think that they will be the dominant use of those kind of things.
I hope. If someone can guarantee that to me, I'm for OPCAT, because you're right. Like theoretically, you're right. Like, it's just a matter of time until the dust settles and how many stuff you can hype on chain. Like, eventually everything will have to go off chain, and
Yes.
and OPCAT really helps in that
Exactly.
regard.
So OPCAT allows you to construct a very efficient execution layers on top of Bitcoin that then settles, in the most efficient way that you can on Bitcoin, right? And this is what we want to build. I understand the concerns.
The concern is that there's no limit to what you're coming from a Stackware mindset, and you want to make the most efficient off-chain layer possible. But
I want to make.
But that's
I
not.
want to make blockchain something that people use everywhere or in a day-to-day.
Okay, and basically there's two tensions. Okay, so there are 2 points of tension. One, blockchain versus Bitcoin, and the second tension is whether how big is the risk with introducing OPCAT to the Bitcoin blockchain.
Yes. By the way, I have no way to control casinos on chain, but we do have a research fund that. There are other concerns apart from just abusing the block space on Bitcoin, right? Can it create, for example, MEV, which currently does not exist on Bitcoin, or stuff like that, right? So we have a research fund that aims to fund and allow people to have those questions and hopefully provide convincing arguments that. So if someone here in the crowd or wherever want to propose a research and also conduct it, we'll be happy to.
He forgot
Amazing.
to say $1 million.
I wanna finish up our panel.
It's written
Yeah.
in the site, $1 million. Just
no,
saw
you're
it
correct. Thank
yesterday
you.
because I prepared.
I want to finish up with something that is eventually very connected to everything that we talked about today. We all want Bitcoin to succeed. We have different ways of how we see it going. And there are the risks that all of you mentioned when it comes to the good sides, like what it can enable in terms of scaling of payments and etc. But the bad side of creating a crypto casino. One of the major themes that is being discussed even more so is how do we keep Bitcoin incentives game going? Because miners are eventually getting rewards from newly created coins. This is the mining process, and from fees. And as we go and we pass 4 years and 4 years and 4 years, with the time we get to 2038, fees are supposed to be the major incentive for miners. And OPCAT, even if it means creating a casino, can become beneficial to that front to create more incentives. So in 30-second each segment, What's your take on making miner incentives still relevant, and where will it come from if not from advancements like OPCAT? 20 seconds each.
Well, I'm against MEV, so of course I want a miner incentive to come only from fees, and if there's no fees, then it means that Bitcoin failed.
Yes, I think that since you go back and settle everything on Bitcoin, so you don't just take execution, but you also create a lot of activity on chain itself, right? So everything is proved and verified on chain, right? So the more activity you have on the execution layer, then you have also a lot of activity go back to the chain itself.
Adi, something you want to add?
Well, I think we need to find a balance because I don't want an empty blocks. It scares me, the shit, it's like I'm really afraid of it. And I think that we need to find a balance. Like, for example, other proposal, maybe OPCAT, I was in favor of OPCAT. Then I started to hang around with Nadav for a while, and really I found and I learned more about it. There are some risks that, it's like Roy said, maybe we don't want to check them out.
So for the final words, first of all, thank you all for coming and enjoying this panel. I think that this panel demonstrates the constant battle we have within the Bitcoin community, on the one hand, to improve it, to make it more usable, to make it more accessible, and to make it more secure, but on the other, to keep the values of conservative, security, and decentralization. Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, thank you very much. What's your prediction? How fast are we going to have AI agents on Bitcoin?
I have no idea, to be honest. I assume they already
Stay
exist.
with us for the next one. So
Thank you very much.
Building blocks. 2025 in Tel Aviv.